let's move along here to Sam, who has been very patient with us. Hello, Sam. You're up next.
Hello, Bart.
Hey, Sam. So where are you calling out of, Sam?
This hand takes place at Parks.
Sam, I have this one as a 9 point. Oh, I have this one as a 9.5. This is a fun hand, if I'm remembering correctly. What's the size of this game?
2-5.
2.5, 1K cap. Parks, 2.5, 1K. Obviously, there's lots of games going, especially on the weekends. They have 10-10 games as well, which probably makes the 2.5 game even better because there's multiple 10-10 games, and you would think that, some of the better players would be moving up there. I don't know what night this was on, but I had seen 7 or 8 2.5 games. It's a lot of action. I call it the sort of the East Coast commerce over there. And how deep are you here for this one?
This is 900 effective.
All right, so 900 effective.
Yeah, and this was a Tuesday, so the games were pretty good.
Oh, because they do that Tuesday, right? It's really packed in there on Tuesdays.
Yeah, there are like 6-10 games going.
Yeah. All right, so start us off here.
Sure. Hero is under the gun with Queen of Spades, Queen of Diamonds.
All right, so hero under the gun, Queen of Spades, Queen of Diamonds, and you no straddle or anything?
No straddle.
And you raised to
20.
About the standard open sizing?
Yep.
So raised to 20. Okay.
Hijack, button, and small blind call, the 20.
Hijack, button, small blind call. Typical multi-way shit.
Yep.
Live poker. So you guys are 4 ways and you're off to the flop with it being $80. Okay. Yep.
Flop comes 9 of hearts, 6 of clubs, 6 of spades.
9 of hearts, 6 of clubs, 6 of spades. The only thing I would say here right off the bat is positional awareness, configuration, whatever you want to call it. I'm happy that the big blind's not here. I don't know how people play the small blind at 2-5 at Parks, but it is a 2-5 game as opposed to a 5-5 game, and the small blind is actually one of the tightest positions you're supposed to be playing from. But sometimes in LA, people look at that $5 like they're in for 5. They'll call with any 2 in the small blind. That's definitely not supposed to be the case. Here, the guy would be calling 18. The reason why I'm just pointing that out is just because obviously where somebody would have a 6 would be way more common in the blinds than in the field. So I don't hate this board. Your hand needs protection. No flush draw out there, 9-6-6. I would definitely bet. Maybe does it get checked to you?
Yeah, small blind does check to me.
I would probably bet maybe something 50 or 60, something like that.
Yeah, I did go a little bit smaller. I bet 30.
Oh, you went smaller. Okay, interesting. I just don't know what's getting called. Maybe if you go small, you might get... See, here's the thing. If you go small in a more heads-up scenario, you might get a lot of floats here, like 2 overcard floats, like ace-high types of floats and things like that. Here in multi-way, I don't know what necessarily gets called for 30 that wouldn't have gotten called for 50 or 60. Maybe at the end you get a float from the small blind with some bullshit trying to make a play at you or something. But anyways, all right. So hero bets 30.
Hijack folds.
Okay.
And the button and the small blind call.
All right. So fold, call. Small blind overcalls. So 90, 170, right? 170 the turn. Hey guys, I've got some exciting news. The WPT has just given me a bunch of golden passports, which are free seats into their gigantic $5 million free roll that's being held live on December 13th at the Wynn during the WPT Championship. All you have to do to get a chance to get one of these golden passports is go to ClubWPTGOLD.com and sign up and verify using the code BART. That will get you into the pool of players that I will be drawing from. And over the next few weeks, I will be handing out some of these golden passports to viewers like you. Check out more information about this event and the giveaway in the description.
I think at this point it is worth mentioning the small blind is a pretty loose passive player who, honestly, I think is calling with a lot of everything on the pre-flop and the flop. He was very loose passive. The button, however, was definitely a solid thinking player and pretty tight pre-flop. So I feel like those are both worth mentioning.
That the button's tight pre-flop? Is that what you said?
Yeah, button seems to be pretty tight, and like a thinking player, I haven't seen too many hands. It just kind of seems like he does know what he's doing. He's a solid player.
So, a couple of things here saying that checking range out of position. I would check range here on this flop multi-way. Some people saying checking range multi-way out of position is never a mistake. Both of those comments in theory are not bad comments, and I would tend to agree. I think that if you start getting into a sort of a rote pattern of checking range multi-way, though, in sort of looser live games, you are leaving something on the table. So there's that. Now, on a board like this, I'd probably rather check this one than some other boards just because I think that there might be a bluffing frequency from somebody in a given situation on like a ragged board, especially if you're doing like a lot of checking with like ace king and ace queen. So it's not it's certainly not a terrible thing to do sometimes to have a checking range from out of position to, you know, sort of have it in your back pocket, but I wouldn't take it too far. Like, for example, the most extreme example I can give is like when I just played at Hustler, right? Like on that Thursday 10, 20, 40 game. Would I ever want to have like a checking range 100 from out of position on a certain board, like with the amount of hands that were being played? I would say that would probably be a mistake. Now, could I have gained equity from somebody trying to bluff me? Sure. But I think I would lose more value, especially with my image in that game, for the value of getting called in given spots. But okay, so now we're at 170 and we're 3 ways to the turn. Okay.
The turn is the 6 of hearts.
So it's 9 of hearts, 6 of clubs, 6 of spades, 6 of hearts. That's a really good card for you, I would say, right?
Yeah, I liked it.
Because obviously that means that there's way less of a chance that somebody has a 6, and people tend to get a lot of real sticky here, right, with full houses. Like if they have 9x, they have a full house. The only other hand that you're losing to right now is pocket 9s, which is possible. People would slow play that hand. So you are losing to pocket 9s and you're losing to the case 6, but I like this card.
Yeah, I've been very back and forth on this decision. Small blind checks, and I checked as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
As I mentioned, the small blind was extremely loose. I felt like there was kind of just like a lot of BS, like King Jack, which honestly I guess I could protect against a little bit, but like just a ton of stuff from 8-7 to 8-5 and 7-10, stuff like that that's dead now. I was just kind of trying to balance my range against the better button. And I felt like if I continued, I was going to get way too much credit, and a 9 was going to fold very often from the button's perspective, not the small blind.
You mean because if you bet again the button, you say play so tight that he might actually fold the 9 out? That's still a pretty tight fold, though.
Not necessarily so tight. I just felt like in my mind, like with the small blind in the pot, if I bet again, the button would kind of recognize I wouldn't really be bluffing into both of them. Again, I've been very back and forth with this. I don't know if would this be a check in any scenario, like if it was like heads up or something against some sort of player?
Well, yeah, but the problem that I have with what you're saying, so you're saying, well, I mean, I don't have necessarily an issue with your, well, a couple of things. First of all, I still don't even think the button's going to fold out a 9. That's not the main thing I was going to say. Maybe he'll, you double barrel again. He folds out some pairs because he's playing tight. But it sounds to me like you're trying to set up like a small blind river bluff. And the problem with that is that you still have the button in the hand. So what I mean by that is if this goes check, 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 like, I don't think the small blind is going to suddenly just like decide to bluff out 7-8. I mean, maybe he will if he's really bad, but he's going to get called by one of you. The button has to have something. He called the flop, right? And people aren't going to fold full houses. So I'd almost like this play that you're talking about to sort of kind of induce this bluff from the small blind. I would like this check back way more if you were heads up against the small blind. Like say you bet the flop and the button had folded and the small blind called, and now you're like, I'm going to play this tricky, I'll check back heads up. That I can get on board with on 9-6-6 heads up, but no, I think when it's multi-way, the pot's protected and you're not going to get that sort of upfront sort of bluff stab that you think you're going to get from the small blind.
Right. I'm really sorry, Bart. I might not be articulating this correctly, but I definitely the small blind I find very passive. Like I don't think he's bluffing ever. So that's definitely that didn't go into my thought process.
I thought you said that he was going to stab out though. Didn't?
No, no. That if I did, I apologize. I'm putting the button, and the button I believe is a tight player pre-flop. I do think it seems like he's capable of bluffs at some point. So in my mind, the button when he calls the flop with the small blind behind has something like 8-7 or a 9. Is kind of where my
Okay,
mind
maybe
was
I
at.
maybe I can maybe I confused that with the other way around because I thought you said the button would fold the 9 sometimes if you bet. Anyways, okay, you check. So small blind checks, hero checks. Okay.
And the button bets 80,
So the button bets 80. Okay.
and the small blind folds.
Here's the thing: like if you call, and then this is always the type of situation. Like if you just call here, right, and then the river comes off, like you're gonna have it go check a lot. So I mean, obviously, like I said, you're losing to a couple hands here, right? You're losing to pocket 9s or like quad 6s, but I would just be more concerned about, I think you're ahead here far more often than you're behind. So when you give up the lead in these spots, this is actually a small blind, small stakes exploit in Crush Live Poker, not giving up the lead. But when you give up the lead in these spots, you're sort of forced to play it weird. Now, you haven't given up the lead yet. You could try to maybe go for a thin check raise, but if you decide to just check call, the on paper, like sort of balanced / logical way to play the river, if you play the turn as a check call, is to check, and it's going to get checked behind. And then you just feel like an absolute idiot, as you should, when 9x checks behind, when you play it this way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Now,
of course.
Now, you could check call, I guess, and donk the river, but I just don't know how many bluffs you have there in that spot. Because here's the thing. Like, if the button is any type of player, what do you check call? Like if you're check calling turn, like not believing him with like ace king, like why would you be donking the river like out like as a bluff? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I don't know what your plan is here for this hand, but what did you do here on the turn?
I just called, and that was another decision where I was so 50-50 in the spot, in real time.
So hero calls.
Yes, I did call.
So what is your plan for the river then?
I was planning on betting, for the reason that
you were gonna
just said.
You were gonna donk bet the river? Really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, I guess if you were gonna bet, then it's better than checking. That's for sure. So the pot is $330 now, right?
Correct.
So 80, 160. You check. So here again, it's hero has queen, 966. He c bet 30. The button called. The small blind called. The turn's a 6, so it's 9666. He checked the turn, and now he checks the turn, and now the button bets 80. Small blind folds. Hero just calls. We're at 330 on 9666. Hero with pocket queens. Okay, and what's the river here?
The river is the 6 of diamonds.
The river is the 6 of diamond. Well, this is interesting. So the final board, I've seen this before. I mean, it's not totally, I mean, it's rare, right? It's rare. The board is 9666. 9666. This is almost like sort of akin to, well, it reminds me a little bit of about like a 4 flush that comes on an unpaired board where there are no straight flushes, where anyone can sort of have the nuts. Of course, the nuts here is any ace. That's it. Now, so anyone with an ace has the nut. The strongest hand is anyone holding any ace, then followed by king, then followed by queen. So you could say that you have the third nut. Interestingly enough, if someone actually had pocket 9s, they would play the board now. They would have been ahead of every other hand on the turn, with the exception of quad 6s, and now they would play the board. They're tied with any other hand, and then a bunch of hands beat them now. So it's definitely really weird. Now, obviously, this changes things a lot here, Sam, in the sense of like, maybe you were going to play the river as a donk bet, but obviously this changes things, right? Quite a bit.
Yes.
Just like a 9, I assume a 9 would change things a little bit here too.
Yeah.
So I don't really see how you can bet here now. Now it just becomes a check and evaluate, really. And then the question then becomes like, well, if the guy bets, like, how often does he have ace high here, or how often is he have some bluffs, or he realizes that a 9 plays the board and he needs to like bluff you.
So I did check, and the button bet 250.
So here are checks. Button bets 250. So the pot is 580, and it's 250 for you to call. Now, are there viable ace and king X hands here? First of all, I don't even know if king X bets. This would get very, very confusing for a typical 2-5 villain, I feel like.
Yes.
But the only hands that like are viable, unless, because remember, like, I don't think the button has a lot of like just ace highs that like, if you go back to the flop, now you did size small, but you bet 30, right? The button called next to act, and the small blind called. Now, if you say, okay, well, the button, he'll have some like floats, like ace 10, so ace jack, things like that. Now let's go to the turn, being a 6. And remember, the small blind is still in the hand. If the button flatted the flop with ace jack, and then you have the turn a 6, so it's 9-6-6-6, and it gets checked to him, he's checking back there a ton. He's not starting a bet. So I actually don't think he has these like ace high floats. He could have ace 9 though, right? That makes sense. He could have ace 9. I suppose he could have king 9 if he bets king 9. Now, if you think that he's tighter on the tighter side, then the only hand that really makes any sense here would be ace 9 suited. So there's 3 combos of that because one of the 9s is out there, right? We don't have anything in our hand to look at blockers or anything like that. So, there's 3 ace 9 suited. Now, if he's like looser than you think, and he's got like ace 9 off, well, then there's 12,
Right?
Right. So you're sort of left with that. Same thing. There's 3 king 9 suited. I don't know if a king is betting here for 250, to be honest with you, especially for this sizing. I think we can throw that out, like king 9. So really, this is ace, or he's turning a 9 into a bluff, or something else into a bluff. Like, say for example, he had pocket 8s. Right? And he bet the turn, which I think is way, way more likely than him having like ace jack and betting the turn. He has pocket 8s and he's betting the turn here for protection. And now at the end, he's playing the board. So, but the other sort of problematic thing that I see here though, is that like, I feel like a guy with a 9 or pocket 8s would just be happy to play the board and check back. I really do. I feel like they would just check. They just wouldn't really know what's going on here a ton, and they would check it back, as opposed to saying, oh, I want to get this guy off of pocket queens specifically. Right? Or like pocket. So I actually think, with my sort of experience, even though this is a super rare spot, I don't know if I think I would fold here a lot, to be honest with you. I think I would fold here a lot. People saying I'd call lots of bluffs. Call lots of bluffs. Really, John F? What bluffs? I do wonder if if he plays ace 9 off here. I feel like he's trying to get to showdown here, or he's going to check back a lot of sort of board playing types of holdings. Plus, too, like maybe you do have some ace highs that call here on the turn as well, right? What did you end up doing here? So it's 580 for 250.
May I ask you, Bart, if it was flipped and you were on the button with something like 8-7, decided to bluff the turn, or if you had pocket 8s and bet turn, would you bluff here on this river?
I think I might, because I think that so he bet. So I bet. So he on the button bet 80 into 170 against 2 people. I don't know how. I think that it's weird though, because I would have expected you to bet pairs on the turn from your perspective. Like, you checked an overpair, which I would not have expected. You just check called.
Right.
So that might have actually protected you a little bit, actually, because I feel like a lot of times when you just check call turn, you actually do have a lot of ace highs, because I would have expected you to bet off pairs. So if I bet the turn with 7-8 in this exact same spot and you check called, I wouldn't probably bluff a lot here at the end.
Okay, that's good to know.
You know what I'm saying? Because I don't think you have a lot of overpairs here as played as a check call. That would be rare for me. You know what I mean? Like, it would just...
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
So what happened?
I did call, and he had ace 9 of spades.
You did not tell me the answer too, right? So ace nine, yeah. And again, you know,
Which
it's one of
makes
the,
sense.
yeah, again, it's one of those ones where if he has ace nine off, he's got even more hands, right?
Right, of course.
I don't think that he bets like this though with king nine. Do you think so? 250 at the end?
Boy, in the moment,
It's such a weird run out, right?
yeah, I threw out kings, and the more I thought about that, I still don't think I'd really give him any kings, which I don't know. I could be wrong if he thinks I have jacks and tens ever, which, as you said, that should bet.
It's just you played the turn so sort of non-standard. Like I feel like you're left with a lot of ace highs here at the end. And then when you take a look at it, actually, too, you know what's funny is like if you want to look at this from an MDF perspective, you have ace highs so often here, like ace king, that I don't know if you have to call down with queen queen in this spot. I don't know how often you would ever get left here with just king high though. But anyways, it's an interesting spot. Thank you very much for the call.
Yeah,
I
thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
All right.